Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a step back, and actually this is just going to be a relaxing Q&A video. Generally, I like to do a Q&A every few months, and it's been quite some time, and with the new year and also Dragonflight being out for a little over a month, I thought it was the perfect time to do so. And so today I'm going to be answering 12 different questions that were submitted by you guys. A lot of them are related to, of course, gold making, general Dragonflight things, personal favorites, and also we do have some random questions as well. But everybody, thank you so much for watching and submitting your questions. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll just have some restocking footage in the background so you guys can listen to this as a podcast or you can watch the video. But everybody, let's get into this. And up first, we're starting with a question that I actually get a lot, and this is by JP, and they ask, do you think it's worth to swap professions if you've bricked your knowledge points on one? Currently, they've bricked their engineering points and thinking of changing it to like enchanting or inscription. That's an easy consumable item to sell. And so this is a question that I get a ton, and what I would say is that it kind of depends. The biggest issue right now with dropping a profession is that there is no sort of catch-up system. So right now, let's say we're, about 6 weeks going on 7 weeks into Dragonflight. And so of course we have the, one-time treasures and everything, so you can gather a ton of knowledge points at the start, but you can never get those weekly knowledge points back. So for example, let's say you switch into enchanting, you'll be able to, recover a lot of points, but you're still technically, 6 weeks behind in weekly knowledge points. So let's just say we get 12 a week, that is 72 knowledge points you are just forever behind on. So unless, Blizzard puts in a catch-up system that says, hey, you should have this many points, if you don't, you'll be able to gain more, something like that, you really will just always be behind. What we have to remember is that eventually we'll have everything unlocked. So even right now, if your engineering isn't perfect, let's say you still have, max amount of points, which I don't know, what the current max engineering points is, but let's say you have 80 to your name, and that's just, doing every single weekly, all of your one-time rewards. It's probably more than that, but let's just say 80 as our baseline. You are still on schedule to max out your profession. Now, of course, you probably should have spent those 80 points in some other category, which, eventually you'll be able to put points into that category, but you still have 80 points compared to somebody who's just starting engineering. They might only have 20. So in terms of swapping professions, it really just depends. Now, if you're not getting anything out of engineering, you're just not interested, you don't plan on rep grinding at all or trying to save yourself, it really depends on how bad you've put your points into something. But, there's no harm in switching, especially if you've just thrown engineering to the side. But I will say eventually engineering will work out. So the only reason why I would swap is if you're super, super desperate. I think in the perfect circumstance, I would just start another character. So create an enchanter and scribe to, run those professions, and you can kind of, move engineering to the side, still do your weeklies, but kind of forget about it. But I would try your best not to just swap around professions. Up next, we have a question by Elite Gaming, who asked, I would love to hear how your experience has gone with the crafting order system. Did you sit and trade all day looking for work, or did you just ignore it? And I have a pretty easy answer with this. I have basically ignored the crafting order system. From, the start of the expansion, even before, during beta access, I just knew the weapons and armor market wasn't going to be for me. Just because my server is a bit lower pop, it's about a medium pop, and we don't have a huge rating presence on our server. So I just knew it wasn't really worth the hassle. I knew some people were going to go super heavy into these types of markets, and I just did not want to sit and trade all day. I didn't want to have to worry about contacting others. So, I made the plan to stick with kind of the region-wide markets. Now, I will say to the people who are interested in the crafting order system, you definitely have to be willing to sit and trade and advertise yourself. Public orders is not what's making people millions, it's the private orders that they get. So there's definitely a reason to if you go into that route. But for me, I just don't really like it. I kind of like, AFK crafting, throwing it up on the auction house, and kind of forgetting about it. So I've been going the non-crafting order route. Moving on, we have another question following the same topic by, I believe it's pronounced Johan, but I apologize if that's not it. And they ask, how do you think Blizzard should deal with a crafting order system for it to be more popular among players? Because every time they go and check, there's only like 1 or 2 orders. Also, should there be a catch-up system for knowledge or anything like that? And this is a great question. First of all, I'm going to answer the probably easier side of things, which is the knowledge point catch-up system. I think eventually in a upcoming patch, there should be a catch-up system. Think about it like every single time we have a major patch, let's just say in Shadowlands, right? People get some sort of item level catch-up gear, right? Whether that's the Korthia base gear or the Zereth Mortis base gear, right? They give somebody an easy chance to get catch-up gear to move on to the next season, etc. And I think that's what should happen with knowledge points. So, whatever that number ends up being is up to Blizzard. Also depends on when patches come out. But let's say whenever, patch 10.1 comes out, or maybe they decide to do it in the little sub-patches, whatever they decide, I think there should be some sort of catch-up. Now, of course, you may still be slightly behind from like the person who does weeklies every single day, but I think there should be a good chunk of catch-up because, if we're looking for months until 10.1, that is a lot of knowledge points to miss. Alright everybody, this is Future Penguin stopping by to re-answer this question because I don't think the first time around did it justice. And so with the crafting order system, I think there's a lot of people who point the finger at specific features when there's really some sort of underlying problem going on. So one of the most common examples is with the crafting order system, public orders. A ton of people say, there's no public orders on my server, nobody's asking for anything, etc. And of course, I think there is a lack. It makes sense. Most of the time, you are asking for items that requires a spark, which are heavily time-gated materials, but I don't think all of the blame are actually on posting orders. As you guys probably know, if you guys have ever done some sort of public work order, is that it literally takes about 5 seconds to do. All you have to do is hit, accept, then hit craft, and then you are done. So by the time you click on a recipe, in about, 5 to 10 seconds, that order is complete and erased for everybody. And that is why, a lot of people aren't seeing orders. Let's say you are a player who goes onto tailoring and looks for an item. Somebody could have placed a public order about 20 seconds ago, but maybe I checked the table before you and I got that item. So yes, there were public orders, but because it's so easy to complete, it just goes away. Now, of course, that's not the whole issue, right? There's also the lacking issue of, BOP materials and stuff, but I think there's a lot more going on than just the fact that, public orders aren't being placed. In terms of what Blizzard should do, I think they have a lot of options. A lot of people want some sort of history catalog, which would be really cool. You could always wipe everybody's names from that. But maybe, let's say you just got the Elemental Lariat recipe and you want to see how active it is on your server. It would be super cool to have some sort of history log of public orders, so you can see, a player requested it for 20k and it was fulfilled an hour ago. Or something like that. I think, some sort of history tracker would be super cool. Or to just see, if there's any sort of activity going on servers, because of course, just looking at a blank screen is super discouraging. Up next, we have a question from Monk with a Whip, who asks, is there a way to quickly see which profession specialization affects the skill of a recipe? Since the description in the tooltip is often rather vague, I guess CraftSim is working on that, but maybe there's a website too. And I sadly have to say, I personally don't know any website that does this. My only suggestion, which is not probably very helpful, is that Wowhead does have a specialization tracker and calculator that you can use outside of the game, but it does just display exactly what in-game says. So if you're, away from WoW, you can use this as a resource. You can also use it as a resource to, plan out your next few points, but it's not going to help you in terms of, what specialization affects the skill. I will say I think the specialization traits actually are pretty good in terms of description. Now, if there is a super vague tooltip, I think it's vague for a reason. Like if you see tailoring goods especially, that is generally the generic trait, meaning it literally affects everything. Now, of course, some are better than others, but I think the best thing to do is just ask somebody, whether that's somebody in-game, somebody in a Discord, whatever you have to do. But personally, I don't really know of any third-party help for that, but if anybody does, feel free to let me know. Up next, we have a great question by Victor, who asks, is there a way of knowing what rank you can craft with different mat ranks without buying themselves and checking? And this is a great question that I also get a lot as well. And there's 2 different ways that you can go about this. And so up first, you have the simple way of just doing the math. What a lot of people don't know is that if you use all quality 3 materials, all of those materials provide 25% skill of your recipe difficulty. So let's say you're crafting something that has a difficulty of 300. If you use all quality 3 mats, you will gain an increase of skill by 75, because 75 is 25% of 300. So if you're in a scenario where you're using quality 2, or let's say you're using quality 1 or nothing at all, you can quickly do that math of 25% of recipe difficulty and see if quality mats are worth it. Now, of course, it gets a little bit complicated if you're using like 1 quality 3, 1 quality 2, 1 quality 1, etc. because of how things are weighted. So we have the second method, which is actually the add-on craft sim, which was talked about in a previous question. And so the easiest way to show off craft sim is actually in-game. So I am gonna show you this live, and if you have this add-on installed, you will be able to turn on simulation mode. So right here, now keep in mind there are a few bugs, but right here you will be able to play with different items and their qualities. So for this example, for the chef's hat, if we toggle out of that, you have to provide artisan's metal, 6 spools, and also 6 bolts. And so, of course, artisan metal you can't really deal with, but you can play around with the different spool thread. Over here, you will see the quality bonus. And so, like I said, it's 25% of, the recipe difficulty. 25% of 400 is 100, which is what that right there is for. And if we say, okay, we're providing all quality 3, so 6 and 6 of the highest quality, as you will see, we will automatically gain all material bonus. However, if we decide to change this, so maybe we provide, 1 quality 2, it will update based on its weighted scale. So this is just great if you guys are playing around with different qualities and you don't plan on just using the highest. Right here, as you can see, we're using 1 quality 1 and 5 quality 3 spools. And we're using 3 quality 2 bolts and 3 quality 3 bolts, and we will only gain about 76 out of the possible 100. Using basic math, that would be very, very hard to calculate, so this add-on is great, and I highly recommend it. Up next, we have a question by Herm. I apologize, I cannot pronounce your name, but they ask, what do you think is the most underrated market right now? And I have a pretty simple answer, and this is just the simple markets that aren't very flashy, that a lot of people just kind of sweep under the rug. I've mentioned a lot of these markets in my casual gold making video, but bags, PvP gear, even just the basic blue gear, and just general items without quality, I think kind of get swept under the rug. Because, people post flashy mailboxes of millions of gold where they're selling these very high-end items, but bags and all of these other items bring in a ton of gold per day. So to anybody out there, if you're looking for some steady income, definitely look at those simple markets, bags, PvP gear, anything super basic, I highly recommend. Up next, we have a question by Caesar, and they ask, what has been my favorite and least favorite thing about Dragonflight? Now, my favorite thing I think is super easy to answer, and this is all of the profession revamps. I really love the new profession system. It's been super fun to figure out. I know some people, think the exact opposite, but I truly think the profession revamp is super awesome. In terms of my least favorite thing, I actually thought about this before recording, probably for 10 minutes, because I couldn't really think of something that I really, really hated about Dragonflight, or, not necessarily hate, but just think it's not very good. And really the only thing I could complain about is the bugs that are very slow to be fixed. For example, there has been a numerous amount of cooking bugs that have existed since the start of the expansion. Right now, crafting speed does nothing for cooking. Also right now, there's a pretty major bug with crafting procs if you're a max level cook. So things like that, I know those are super small, but I wish they could be fixed pretty fast. Of course, there are bugs that were in tailoring and alchemy that were way more major than this, and those have been fixed, so that is of course good, but I do think my least favorite thing is that there are a lot of crafting or gathering bugs that just are still bugged to this day. Keeping with this favorite theme, I have a question by Akiax, who asks what is my favorite profession, and also what is my least favorite. Now, my favorite profession, I have a soft spot for it, is enchanting. Enchanting has been my favorite profession for years. I used to love old world enchanting. Of course, that went away pretty fast with the region-wide auction house, but just because of its simplicity, enchanting always has a place in my heart. But I think a close second is Inscription. Inscription has been super fun in Dragonflight so far. I personally like dealing with complexity in all of its intermediate steps, so those would be my two favorite. By far, my least favorite profession is alchemy. I apologize for all the alchemists out there. I think the only redeeming quality of alchemy is the fact that there is alt army advantages, especially with transmutes, but in general, I have to say I've pushed alchemy to the curb. I really just don't like it. Up next, we have some more kind of personal and then random help questions, and the first one is from Matthias, and they ask, what do you do when you're not making gold or researching markets? Do you do Mythic Plus, raiding, pet battles, etc.? And I have to admit, I am pretty boring. You know, my main thing I do in WoW is gold making, obviously, and I really don't do much after that. The last time I raided was in WoD, so it's been a number of years. I've never really gotten into pet battles or anything like that. I'm not a huge collector. I like to say I kind of do casual Mythic Plus. So far in Dragonflight, I've only done one key, and that was a +2. So take that with a grain of salt. I did a little bit of Mythic Plus in Shadowlands, and I hope to bring it back, but I really have to admit most of my time on WoW is making gold. Hooligan comes in with the question that's a little bit different, they say, and they wonder if I've ever taken my gold making interest to other games / MMO like Guild Wars, ESO, etc. And to be honest, I really haven't. I haven't really played many other MMOs ever since I got addicted to WoW. I did play ESO for slightly, like a very small amount of time, but instead of making gold, I mostly was just stealing items and selling it. So, I mean, maybe that's a form of gold making, but really nothing in terms of economy-wise. Also, of course, when New World came out and before it became a small disaster, you know, I did do a little bit of crafting in New World, but nothing really stuck like WoW. I will say, actually, before I got into WoW, my first ever, honestly, computer game really was RuneScape. And I did not even play on my own account. At the time, I played on my cousin's account, and they let me play probably about, an hour or so a day. And of course, general RuneScape things, they would go out, complete quest, kill things, and I stayed in the major city and, gathered stuff. So looking back, I was just having fun, I was just gathering, using the bank, all of that. But looking back, it really makes sense. I'm not very shocked that I am a gold maker at the moment because of my RuneScape experience, but yeah, I really haven't done much outside of WoW. Then lastly, we have two final questions. One is from How Now Pun Cow, who asked me, what is the best way to find groups for Mythic Plus? And this is kind of a funny question because I just said the only key I've done is a +2, but my only suggestion for you is Group Finder. That is what I use. I know that's probably not the best, but I just, apply to a ton of groups and hope somebody accepts me. Of course, if you guys can find some friends to pair up with, that is amazing, but I just use trusty dusty Group Finder and hope for the best. Then lastly, our final question, last but not least, we have from Micris, and they ask, do the new dragon mounts help with farming? And in terms of Dragonflight farming, yes. As you may or may not know, you can only dragon ride in the Dragon Isles, so you are kind of stuck with using those mounts. first of all, that might be a bad thing for a lot of people, especially if you're a druid, but if you spec into mining process or botany into herbalism or mining, you can actually stay mounted when farming. So to all the non-druids out there, this is actually perfect for you. You know, normally you would have to use a sky golem, or you would just have to be stuck, you know, remounting every time you gather an herb. But with specializations, if you spec into this, you can actually stay mounted, which speeds up your time significantly. Now, these mounts are only available in Dragonflight, so if you're talking about old world stuff, none of this applies. Use your classic druid, but because of this, druids don't really matter anymore, so I would say yes, the new mounts do help with farming. And with that, everybody, that is all I have for today's video. To those who submitted your questions, thank you so much. To those who listened to this video, thank you so much. And everybody, I really just have to say thank you guys so much. Every single one of you, I really, really do appreciate you guys. This is amazing. I couldn't imagine a better 2022, and I can't wait to see what 2023 does for us. So everybody, thank you so much for taking your time to watch my videos. I hope you were able to take away at least one new thing from these videos, and of course, if you guys do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I'll try my best to reply. But everybody, as always, thank you so much, and have a good day.